Ohio's congressional map makers are sent back to the drawing board. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Jesse Balmert, State House reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer, Jeremy Pelzer, State House reporter for Cleveland.com, Terry Casey, Republican strategist, and Sam Gresham of Common Cause Ohio. A federal court in Cincinnati has thrown Ohio politics into chaos just as the 2020 campaign season begins to take shape. A three-judge panel has ruled that Ohio's congressional map is unconstitutionally gerrymandered. Here's what the map looks like. With one district that stretches along Lake Erie, another one that travels from southwest Ohio all the way up to Cleveland, suburban Cleveland. Joyce Beatty's district here in Franklin County looks like a Rorschach test. Well, the three-judge panel in Cincinnati ruled unanimously the Republican map makers manipulated district lines to try to control electoral outcomes. The ruling says, quote, either the Republicans were exceedingly lucky or their map drawers made exceedingly expert use of political data to manipulate district lines to secure the most seats in the least amount of competition possible. The court ordered the state to draw another map for the 2020 elections by June 14th. That is 6 weeks from now, though it's likely the ruling will be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Sam Gresham, you're with Common Cause Ohio. You weren't a part of this suit, but you've been a part of others in other states. What about this ruling surprised you?
Nothing, because if you look at the map, you'll see how absurd it is. And if you look at the map, you'll see that there had to be some conning in it. I heard in a conversation before, Joyce Beatty's district was created like a sinkhole, and you got the snake on the lake that goes from Cleveland to Toledo, and then you got Steve Stiver's district, which goes from suburban Upper Arlington all the way down to Athens County. So it's obvious that any judge that could see this would come to the conclusion that they're gerrymandered, overridingly gerrymandered.
Well, I'll agree with Sam that the districts don't all look pretty, but the problem is the state of Ohio is going to spend millions and millions of dollars to create a new map that'll be in effect for only one term, because when the census happens in 11 months, less than 11 months, you've got to use that data as Ohio's districts shrink in number, and you've got to have a whole new plan.
So Terry, as I've always told you, wrong is wrong and right is right.
Well, if that's true, Sam, why didn't your group go to California and New York and get them to fix Democrat gerrymandered districts?
Well, we did. If you understand the history of our organization, we're involved in a suit in Maryland where we are suing Democrats.
Well, what about California and New York, two of the biggest prizes for Democrats?
Jesse, this ruling is 301 pages long, and it's very specific. As Sam mentioned, it uses the nicknames for these districts. We don't know who wrote it. There were three judges. One's appointed by a Republican, two by Democrats. But it was pretty detailed criticism of this map. Does that hold any weight going forward?
Well, I think it's going to be a long read for anyone who wants to go through all of it. Mostly it was detailing the very specific instances, like we've been mentioning, how these were drawn in ways to benefit one party over the other. Ohio has ended up with 12 Republican districts and 4 Democratic districts in a state that, leans red, leans Republican in, state races more so than even federal races. And so when the judges were coming to this conclusion, they basically said that this map was drawn in a way to be unfair, to be to the advantage of Republicans.
Jeremy, this is still a fresh ruling, came out fairly late Friday afternoon. Lawmakers are busy looking at budgets, but has there been any reaction to the fact that they may have to approve a new map by the middle of June?
I haven't seen anything yet, but as of airtime, but in fact, the first statement, I should say, that I saw at least was from Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State, who basically said, well, we passed a new redistricting plan for 2022, and it didn't really rule on the merits. I'm sure, as Jesse said, a lot of them are probably still reading the decision to find out what happened.
Yeah. And to me, the most puzzling thing is the U.S. Supreme Court has been silent and somewhat ducked coming up with a rule book that says what's permissible and what's not permissible by either Democrats or Republicans. So I think the U.S. Supreme Court's got to make clear what's allowed and what's not allowed.
But now, Sam, because there's a case in Maryland, North Carolina, Michigan was recently decided going to the Supreme Court. Now this one, Are you hopeful, or groups like yours hopeful the Supreme Court will make some kind of playbook and finally rule on these things?
I think the Supreme Court has no alternative. With so many cases coming up to them, they're going to have to rule on something to give a guidebook to the states around the country. What I'm so happy for is that this is happening, and it's happening at this time, right before the new census, that these decisions will be made. So when the 2021 maps are drawn, that it will be drawn in such a way that it's fair.
What does this do, Terry, to politics and campaigns? Because let's just say that Ohio does have to redraw the map. So that none of the congressmen are going to lose their seats. Congressmen and congresswomen are going to lose their seats, but they're going to have likely more competitive districts.
Well, there might be some people lose their seats out of this. It all depends on what kind of map they come up with. And again, I haven't yet read the 301 pages and how they said to do it, but it's chaos upon chaos, and it's very expensive to do this.
It's not chaos. For the last 5 years, we've held a contest in the state of Ohio on drawing an equitable redistricting, both under congressional.
Equitable by what standard? Most compact, most competitive? What rule book?
We
are you
put
gonna
some
use?
criteria out there so you can do that. And I will end up agreeing with you. There will be some bias that has to be a part of it because there's no such thing as perfect.
But who's biased? Because I've been involved in drawing some districts, and in Ohio, if you got 16 congressional districts, the first 2 or 3 could really look pretty and be compact, but then you're always going to have parts left over.
Well,
And then
but
you gotta put 'em
the
together
interesting
and then
thing
it looks
about
ugly.
that, Democrats, more people, as many people vote for Democrats as they are Republicans. So how you end up with 4 Democratic districts and 12 Republicans on the congressional level when people vote for as many Republicans as they do Democrats? It says something's wrong with the lanes.
Or maybe there were better candidates. Like Joyce Beatty, I mean, in this current plan, Ohio doubled from 1 African-American member of Congress to 2, and
Yeah.
Joyce Beatty was happy with
I don't buy
that.
that for a second. When
Thank
you
you.
look at the victory margin of these districts, and the fact that 56% of Ohio voted Republican, but 75% of the districts are in Republican hands. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's going to be bias here, and the question is, whose bias is going to be? That's absolutely right, and it's hard to draw these districts because you have to take in like dozens of, or a whole bunch of different factors, and you're not going to be able to square that circle. You're just not.
So it could come down to, Jesse, like the old pornography definition. I know it when I see it. If it's gerrymandered, I know it when I see it. That's kind of what this court ruling said today.
And these judges listened to a lot of testimony, things like University of Cincinnati sports team was practicing in one district and playing their games in another district.
Yeah.
And so I think stuff like that
But
offends
that's
the
meaningless
sensibilities.
stuff. I mean, where pro teams practice, they don't have to all be in the same congressional
We can
district.
concoct an algorithm that can be fair.
But who's going to draw up the algorithm and make the rules?
Well, lawmakers will, and they'll have judges check it to make sure it was okay. Anyway.
Well, fair is always a subjective
It's
term.
an elusive word.
Always
I
a
think
subjective.
we're all going to be quite busy in the next several weeks trying to
I
figure
think
out what
that's
this
a
means.
fair point.
Speaking of busy, suddenly some Ohio Republicans want to tax the rich to pay for tax cuts for lower incomes while increasing spending for education and social programs. Governor DeWine started this trend with his state budget, and now leaders of the Republican-controlled House have gone even further. Here are some highlights of the House budget plan. It would reduce the big tax break sole proprietors like lawyers and accountants get on income from their businesses. Very low-income people would see state taxes eliminated, while those making less than $89,000 a year would see roughly a 5% cut in the state income tax. The House plan spends even more money than Mike DeWine would on so-called wraparound programs to help kids before and after school in poor areas. And it adds even more money to DeWine's increases for children's service programs, which are very stretched because of the opioid crisis. Jesse Balmer, one social service provider, says she was blown away by the House GOP budget. Is that the feeling at the State House? That people were surprised?
I think Speaker Larry Householder and his Republicans are like Robin Hood right now. They're taking from the rich and giving to the poor. So I think a lot of the programs that they've cut back on are tax exemptions on things like owning a portion of a private plane through a specific business. There are things like investments in coins and bullion. It's motion picture taxes, and some of the money where they're investing is in schools or in eliminating income taxes on some of the lower income Ohioans. Another thing that they really took a look at was this taxing of business income used as personal income, so for like pass-through entities, and reducing how much money could be tax-free on that.
So, Jeremy, this is only once. This is the second step of really a three-step process, at least three-step process.
Oh, we're not even
House
done.
budget.
We're at the beginning of the second step.
Yeah.
Very
The House
beginning.
has still got to pass it next week.
Yeah.
So this is a long way to go.
Oh.
Our lawmakers going to basically approve this tax hike on some people to pay for tax cuts for others.
I think there's something in the background that we really need to talk about. It's Householders Coalition with the Democrats, and what effect has that had on this budget? The second aspect we have to look at is that the sinking fund is at maximum level. You can't put any more money in it. So what caused this benevolence all of a sudden? I like the governor. I like his approach to social service programs, education, all the things that he's doing. But I think there's some lurking things in the background mechanically that require the Republicans to do some of this.
Jeremy, is that what's happening? That Larry Householder has promised this to Democrats, or is he
I don't
just
know if I
looking
use
out
the
for
word. I don't know if I use the word lurking, but I would definitely say that. Larry Householder, it's a different kind of speakership than what you had the past couple of speakers, which is Republicans are going to do Republican things, and Democrats, thanks for showing up. And here it's a lot more kind of murky. And Larry Householder is the kind of speaker that cuts deals, and it's not so much ideological as what can we do to get down to brass tacks to get things done, and I think this reflects that.
You're a fiscal conservative, Terry. What do you think of this budget plan?
Well, part of the good news for Ohio, and this is jumping ahead to a later topic, Mike DeWine and the Republicans in the legislature have been very lucky that the economy, as reported in the national numbers, is really doing well. And when Ohio opened up the income tax envelopes mailed in April 15th, Ohio did better than expected, and it looks like the economy and the recovery is going to continue very well. So that gives them more money, and so they can do more things.
Terry, then why did households use language like this? That the economy is going well, but not everybody is benefiting from it. He said that.
Maybe he's enlightened. Why complain?
Jesse, Larry Householder comes from rural Ohio. He comes from, southern Ohio, Appalachia, hit hard by the opioid crisis. He has a soft spot for these children's services, which are stretched because of foster parents' burdens and things like that. So that could be part of his motivation as well. Probably is.
Yeah, I think you can definitely see his background in this budget. The money for schools is tailored specifically to rural schools in places with more agriculture. I think you see even things like money for lower income students to take advanced placement tests, things like that maybe help people a little bit.
And Speaker Householder's wife is a teacher in the public schools in Perry County, so she sees and shares with him firsthand how things have impacted people in real life.
I think this is a good thing.
Well,
When the
but
rural can see synergy with the urban on these critical issues.
Well,
They
now
have
I'm gonna agree with you,
characteristics,
Sam. You're getting
characteristically
smarter.
the same thing, yes.
On this question, you're doing better.
Well, thank you.
I would say, though, before we all get too kumbaya, is that there's a reason these tax expenditures are going to fund this proposed income tax cut. There's a reason these things have stuck around. There's a reason. I remember this isn't the first time they've tried to cut taxes on corporate or tax deductions on corporate jets. The motion picture tax credit, a lot of people really like that. So I don't think this is not a done deal by any means.
All right.
But I'm glad to be a populist, opposed to those Hollywood people getting subsidies from Ohio
I'm
taxpayers.
surprised at you.
They are things that both conservatives and more liberal people have gotten on board with, because the Buckeye Institute, very conservative organization, has had this on a list to get rid of for years.
Yeah. All right, lawmakers are moving closer to ending the state's ability to take over failing school districts. Current law, passed 4 years ago, allows the state to take over any district that receives 3 consecutive failing grades on a state report card. The state has already taken over 3 districts. Several additional districts, including Columbus, face the prospect of a state takeover next year if they can't get their district grades up. The Ohio House this week passed a bill that would end the takeovers and have local officials focus on failing individual schools rather than a district takeover. Terry Casey, what's going on here? Is this that the system didn't work, or that politicians in these 9 or 10 districts don't want to see their home district taken over?
Well, here's the little secret. In Ohio, including in the legislature, we have people with multiple personalities. And on one hand, they want to be for local control, but they also want higher standards and better performance. But when faced with the hard reality of having to literally take over dozens of districts in Ohio, they realize, uh-oh, that could be a problem too. So they're kind of leaning for right now towards local control rather than tougher standards.
The one thing that I saw in the report that made me feel good was that they finally put a correlation between the incomes of the parents and the performance in school, regardless of race. So we're finding out that true. But H.R. 70 needed to die a long time ago.
This is the takeover bill.
The takeover bill, because its intent had no way, just like charter schools, of being successful.
But what they wanted more accountability for failing school districts. If after 3 years the local control isn't working, what's the penalty? That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, but I think they were trying to force a round peg into a square hole. You need to understand the problem first. And the best way to address the problem is the poverty that these schools have. Not because of they don't understand things, they don't have the supports at home that these other kids have. And I think they approached it wrong, just like charter schools.
What about, now this is the 3rd grade reading guarantee has been watered down since it was passed around the same time. The high school tougher graduation standards, they've been lowered.
Zero tolerance?
So the get tough on education is sort of going by the boards. Is that what's happening at the State House?
Well, I mean, it's everyone's saying they want to be tough on education. No one can agree what that is. Yeah. And then when you actually get down and look at the situation on the ground, well, you got to play with the cards you're dealt. And I think a lot of lawmakers, they have idealism and then there's pragmatism.
And it's hard to make the same rules for all the districts, 600 plus, in a state as diverse as Ohio. And there's poorer parts of Ohio, like in Western Ohio, but get very high performance because you've got a high degree of parental involvement, which makes a huge difference. So I kind of agree with Sam. The parents and their educational level and their degree of involvement, that relates to educational quality.
I think they should come up with a scoring system where you have more poor kids in difficult educational situations, you get more points. Because if you overcome that.
All right.
I do think the rub on this is going to be, as it has always been, local control versus some sort of enforcement mechanism. And what's currently in the House version, I think, you want the locals who know the schools best to be involved, but there's not a lot of stick in the plan right now.
All right. Governor DeWine now supports a gun control proposal, albeit a modest one. The governor says he wants Ohio to consider a so-called red flag law. Such laws allow judges to remove guns from people deemed prone to commit violence. 14 states have them. Former Governor John Kasich wanted one for Ohio. DeWine says recent shootings at synagogues have prompted him to take a fresh look at the issue.
I've challenged our team to come back with something in the area of the red flag legislation that could pass. We need to have something that can actually pass, and so that's certainly a part of the criteria, but we don't have anything yet to announce today.
Jeremy, this was a bit of a surprise. Was it because of the synagogue shooting in California, or had this been in the works for a little while?
Well, the governor said he wants a plan that has due process, and that's the key. When Governor Kasich proposed his red flag law, it was part of a whole package of reforms, gun policy reforms. And a lot of those reforms and the way that the governor went about proposing them, to use the euphemism of just pushing them at the legislature, they didn't like that. But if you look at red flag laws with due process to make sure that it's not just some judge arbitrarily taking guns away from people, the NRA has expressed support for such laws. This is not a sudden leftist turn by Governor DeWine. This is mainstream Republican gun control.
And the difficulty is, what's the due process? Because to determine whether somebody should or shouldn't have a gun is not as simple as doing a 15-second blood pressure test where you know it's okay or it's not okay, because agreeing on that due process and how it's done is not that simple. And then also the governor made very clear something that can pass the legislature. And that's not a simple, easy thing
Right,
either.
Jesse, what are the odds that, we saw the ads of Larry Householder shooting televisions when he ran for a re-election. We see them recently trying to make it so people who carry hidden guns don't need a permit and don't need training. We have guns in bars, guns in daycare centers.
Guns in churches.
What is the legislature's mood going to be on this?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the Ohio GOP-controlled legislature doesn't have a history of enacting gun control really in any capacity. All of the legislation that's been passed in recent years has made having a gun, obtaining a gun, using a gun in a concealed manner easier. And so that is going to be the lift. But to the point earlier, I was less surprised that this was something on Governor DeWine's mind because he did talk about it at least a little bit during the campaign. I think the surprise to us was that, this is something they're actually working on right now.
Mike, these are my type of Republicans.
Sam, you're getting smart again.
But when you hear reasonable discussions about modest gun control, which we haven't heard reasonable discussions about even modest controls, or gun safety measures as the left likes to call them, is it a sign that things are changing a little bit in the debate on this issue?
I think the chaos and the push of the NRA is creating an environment where people will just acting stupid. I think it's settling down, and the more deaths that will pile up, and the more concerns people have. My church, where I go, has a concern about people coming in there and shooting up a bunch of black people. I think it's permeated finally that we have a bunch of predatory people, a minority, preying on the majority, and something has to happen. Now, my final point on this, we must err on the side of safety with regards to this law. Some people won't like it, and some people won't be fairly treated. But we need to take guns out of the hands of people who don't need to have them.
All right. Our last topic, it has been 3 months, the magic 100 days since Governor DeWine took office. In that time, he has won approval for a tax hike on gasoline. He's halted executions. He's proposed big spending hikes for social services and education. He wants to spend surplus money to clean up Lake Erie. One might call those more liberal initiatives. But during that same period, he signed what many believe to be the nation's most restrictive anti-abortion law, the Heartbeat Bill, which bans abortion as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy with no exception for rape or incest. Terry Casey, to the first group. If Richard Cordray had proposed those things, Republicans would be howling. If John Kasich had proposed those things, they might be howling a little. No one's howling now, though.
Well, if you look at the facts, Cordray proposed some things that were a lot more big spending, like free college and all those other things. But in a way, the governor, as I mentioned earlier, has been very lucky because the economy nationally in Ohio is going well, and it's a lot easier to be more effective as a governor when you've got money and you've got some good legislative leadership in the House and Senate, which has been doing well and getting things done. And also, he's gotten a lot of credit for the diversity and the quality of his cabinet. So things are going well, but part of it is when you're experienced as he's been over his career, and again, the economy's going well, it's easy to be successful.
I want to give kudos to the governor for the diversity that he's reflected in his cabinet. Also, I want to give him credit for he and Householder, beginning to see the effect on local government that the years of taking money away from them has had, and now they seem to have a different philosophy on adding money to local government.
Jesse, is this a honeymoon that Governor DeWine is enjoying now, or is it a permanent change that Republicans are going to be more willing to agree to some of these things, like tax hikes?
I think he's benefiting from a lot of frustration with his predecessor, John Kasich, that wasn't in a great place with the GOP-controlled legislature or Democrats, for that matter. And so I think he has a little bit of a honeymoon period there. But also, DeWine is seeking a legacy, and these are things that he feels like he can plant for future generations.
And look, Mike DeWine is your father's Republican, or maybe your grandfather's Republican. He is a pre-Tea Party Republican. If 20 years ago a large state governor, a Republican governor, proposed these things, not many people would blink the way we're blinking now. And as Jesse said, the governor, this is probably going to be the last public office he holds, and he's looking ahead. And so instead of ideology, he's like, okay, what am I specifically going to do for my legacy?
All right, let's get to our off-the-record final parting shots. Sam, you're up first.
I am. This is a glorious day with regards to redistricting in the state of Ohio and in this country. More power to the people.
All right, Terry.
Sports betting is my prediction, and I think by July 1st they'll pass a sports betting bill. But right now, they're bitterly divided between the House and the Senate and whether the Casino Commission should control or the Lottery Commission, and there's various constitutional, legal, and operational questions, but I think they'll get it worked out by July 1.
But no betting on the Blue Jackets, though.
Not this year, maybe next year.
All right, Jeremy.
I think the Senate's going to be a lot more favorable to that HB 6, the nuclear bailout or clean energy bill, whatever you want to call it. They're going to be a lot more amenable to that than people might think.
All right, and Jesse.
There was a fun addition to the House version of the budget where show choir could count for your physical education requirement.
Show choir. It's like active singing, perhaps. Or,
Just got to get your moves on.
That's right. You got to practice good breathing. I guess would that be physically?
Come up with that.
I do predict all of these gerrymandering cases are coming before the court for a reason. I don't know what the solution will be, but I do think the court is going to somehow step in and try to write some kind of rules to change how we draw district maps because it's become so scientific and so easy to manipulate. Anyway, that is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, Facebook, Twitter. We're not on Terry's favorite Snapchat, but you can connect to all of that at our website, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.